Let's go back to nature. There's a wonderful sentence by the playwright Artaud, forget his name, Artaud, something like that, French playwright, who says that from time to time, he says, cataclysms occur that force us to return to life. The cataclysm that's occurring today in terms of global warming, in terms of the disappearance of the species, 1 out of 4 mammals on this planet are currently going extinct. The disappearance of the rainforest and so forth, all this can be a profound learning and awakening experience for us as a species. This is not an Irish problem or a Western problem or an Eastern problem. It's a species issue, our survival, our relationship to the rest of creation, which feeds us all on a daily basis. If we're not autistic, as Thomas Berry says, he says in the 20th century, humans became autistic. We became cut off from the communication of the other species. We had so much our agenda of progress and industrialization and post-industrialization going that we couldn't hear anymore the voices, the awesome voices of the other beings, which in themselves are awesome. The whale, 56 million years longer it's been on this planet than we have. It's talking to us. All the beauty of the world talks to us. That wonderful line from Baudelaire, French art critic of the 19th century, who says, we walk through forests, not one forest, forests, plural, of physical things that are also spiritual things that look on us with affectionate looks. That's where the awe is coming from. It's coming from nature. But are we listening? Are we absorbing? Where are our hearts? How pure are our hearts? Are our hearts so committed to a different agenda than awe that we are artistically cut off? Gregory Bateson, one of the great ecological philosophers, said this once. He said, the hardest thing in the gospel is that of St. Paul addressing the Galatians when he says, God is not mocked. This saying applies to the relationship between humanity and ecology, says Bateson. Processes of ecology are not mocked. Our generation, 21st century, is taking on the burden and the price of hundreds of years of Western culture that thought it could, quote, and I'm quoting Descartes and Francis Bacon, quote, master nature. What an agenda. What a strange agenda. More than that, what a failed agenda. Nature is not mocked. And Hildegard, being in the 12th century, said the same thing when she said, there is a web of justice between humanity and all other creatures. And if humans break this web of justice, God allows creatures to punish humanity. Notice, she's not saying God's up in the sky punishing us, but the other creatures are going to expel us from the web of creation if we cannot find the balance. And of course, a web is not a stiff thing. A web floats, a web adjusts, a web is fastened. But nevertheless, a web is a web. And if we choose to break that web, creation itself is going to put us down and expel us. One thing that strikes me even today about our ecological blinders is that until I read this one article recently in the paper, I had never heard any broadcaster on TV or any politician or anyone else explain to me what the war in Darfur was about. But this article came out not long ago. And what it tells me is that the whole Darfur war is about water scarcity. Decades of scarce water and other resources have stoked low-intensity local conflicts that eventually led to a devastating civil war. The 4-year conflict has killed more than 200,000 people, displaced more than 2.5 million others, etc. This is quoting a geologist. Much of the unrest in Darfur and the misery is due to water shortages. There have been 2 long episodes of drought during the past 20 years, each lasting for about 7 years, and so forth. My point is, we're fed the news about Darfur totally out of the context of ecology and nature, which is what it's all about. It's just like the immigration crisis in Southern Europe and in America, United States. All these politicians, I'll just talk about my country, we need a 13-foot fence all across the border with Mexico. Then someone else points out, yes, and there are such things as 14-foot ladders. But the truth is that the immigration movement from south to north that's going on in our time is essentially an ecological thing. If you've seen satellite pictures of Central America or Northern Africa taken 15 years ago, Central America, Northern Africa were essentially green. Today, these same areas, satellite pictures, they've turned brown. The fact is, we're losing arable land. That's what it's about. When people don't have arable land, they move. You would, unless you think your food comes from Piggly Wiggly or Safeway, which, of course, we've been taught to think that food comes from corporations and stores and not from the earth. That has to be green for the most part. Unless you're a certain kind of desert Indian who figured out how to grow things in the desert after about 10,000 years, none of us are going to be real facile at that. So my point is that even the news we're getting today is totally out of context about the role of our relationship to nature. No wonder our kids are depressed and cynical, because they live in a culture where nature doesn't show up on the radar. It's taken for granted.